Today's lecture series will be on developing a research question, literature review, and research proposal. I'm Dr. Penda Jom, a postdoctoral researcher at the Medical Research Council Unit The Gambia at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. First lesson will be on developing a research question. In order to come up with an original research question, you first need to know the literature in the area. You need to find out what has been done and how you can contribute to the existing academic debate. A research question is a statement that identifies the phenomenon to be studied. A valid and clear research question is 1. Well justified, 2. Original, 3. Feasible, and 4. Focused. Where do you start when you have no research question? Well, 1. You need to narrow down an area of interest. Second, within that area of interest, you need to try to answer a research question that one has either not been addressed before or has been addressed but that you could extend in a significant way, or pioneer a new research area. Before you identify a research question, it is crucial that you narrow down a research area of interest. When you do not have a question, you need to read as much as you can on the topic. Remember, recent publications or studies will contain more updated literature, so try and collect these first. Make sure you read all relevant papers, or at least the most influential ones in your field. Ideas on the research topic often come from this exercise. For example, author X has not included factor Y in their study, so maybe I could look into factor Y. The more you read, the easier it will be to come up with a research question. You think you have a question. Reviewing the literature will enable you to understand whether your research question has already been answered or is a potentially valid one. Also, by reading previous studies, you might get new ideas on how to tweak your original research question into a brand new one. Again, start by reading recent publications or studies first. The bottom line is, whether you have or do not have a research question, it is crucial that you review the literature in the area first. Many students commit the mistake of leaving the literature review as the last step. However, this is very dangerous, as you might find that the question has either already been addressed or discarded by the literature because it's not relevant or important or feasible. Where do you look for papers or literature? Well, search engines. Check Google Scholar. These search engines are good for gray literature. However, they can return thousands of results. There's no quality control, but they do give you full text, and they do cover all subject areas and types of information. Also, mostly they're free. Bibliographic databases, such as PubMed, these are good for academic literature. The items are selected by subject, by type. However, they usually only give you an abstract, and you usually can only get the full text access through your university, and often you need to subscribe. There are also some common mistakes that are made when finding new questions. 1. Non-originality. 2. Non-feasibility. The time constraint, resources, and knowledge. Also, having too broadly defined a research question. And finally, not being well justified. So a few tips from this first lesson. Start searching for a topic as early as possible. Once you narrow down a topic, look at the relevant literature. Once you have passed the literature review, Ask yourself, is the question specific? Is it feasible in the allotted time? And do I have enough resources to answer this question? If the answer is yes to those questions, then congratulations, you have a research question. Let's move on to the second lesson. We're going to cover how to develop a literature review now that we know how important it is. What counts as literature? Well, everything relevant that is written on a topic in books, journal articles, newspaper articles, historical records, government reports, dissertations, and even theses. What is a literature review? It is a selective analysis of literature on a research question you have chosen to investigate, showing how it relates to your research. It is not a summary of everything you have read on the topic or a chronological account of what has been discovered in the field. So why write a literature review? It puts your research question into a wider context, where you take a critical look at the existing research. Remember, it is not a summary of relevant sources. You need to evaluate, synthesize, compare and contrast the works and selected concepts and show how they relate to your research. For example, the methodology in a paper. So how do you write a literature review? Well, to get started, you need to decide first on your points of focus. What research has already been done on this topic? What are the sub-areas of the topic you need to explore? What other research might be relevant to your investigation? How do these subtopics and other research overlap with your investigation? Note down all your initial thoughts on the topic. For data collection, your aims and objectives should guide your research. Be systematic in your choice of literature. It's not the same as following the formal protocol of a systematic review. Apply inclusion and exclusion criteria if necessary. Record and explain your choice of literature. So how do you write a literature review in terms of organization? Well, you need to have an introduction wherein you write the broad context of your research area and the main topics you're investigating. You need to have a main body, which is an analysis of the literature according to a number of themes or topics that overlap with your research. And you need to have a conclusion, which is a summary of the current state of the research in your field as analyzed in the main body. Identify any gaps or problems, and explain how your investigation is going to address these or build on the existing research. Questions a literature review should answer. What do we already know in the immediate area concerned? What are the characteristics of the key concepts or the main factors or variables? What are the relationships between these concepts, factors, or variables? What are the existing theories? Where are the inconsistencies or other shortcomings in our knowledge and understanding? What views need to be further tested? Why study further the research problem? What contribution can the present study be expected to make? What research designs or methods seem unsatisfactory? You need to develop a search strategy for your literature review. This can be done in collaboration with the library department at your university, or from searching previously existing strategies or coming up with one afresh. Here is an example on the analysis of the effectiveness of yellow fever immunization programs in Central Africa, breaking it down as such. question arises on how many databases you should search. Well, this depends on which type of research degree you're undertaking. But this is a general guideline. The number of resources to search really depends on the scope of your search. You must keep track of your results. Keep track of the names of the databases, the database platforms, the dates that you've searched, the time frame of the search including the database coverage rates, the search strategy, and the number of records retrieved. These will all go in to the results section of your literature review. You also should ideally have a reference management software. What does it do? This is a database of your references. It automatically imports citations from databases. It imports and it manages PDF files. Where can you get it? Well, EndNote can be purchased online, and Mendeley is free online. And where can you get help? Well, there are free online training classes for Mendeley and EndNote. And universities usually offer support and training either through the library department or others. I also suggest having a literature review template such as this table. For every single paper that will finally be included in your literature review, you would document the study investigators, the year of study, the country of the study, the place in the country, whether it's urban, rural, or mixed, the objective of that study, the study population, the methods used, the type of intervention, if any key findings, any social and behavioral drivers, for example, outcomes and impacts mentioned within the paper and limitations mentioned in the paper, implications for future programs mentioned, and the citation of the paper. This is really going to be helpful for the organization of your literature review and later on when you go to present your results. And even in your final dissertation or thesis write-up. So overall, what were the second lesson tips? Remember the purpose. Bear in mind the questions we looked at. Read with a purpose. Be selective in the information you review. Summarize, but most importantly, analyze and evaluate ideas. Write with a purpose. Show relationships between previous research and your own research. Organize your work according to concepts, problems, and gaps. The third lesson we will cover is how to develop a research proposal. A research proposal should describe what you will investigate, why it is important to the discipline, and how you will conduct your research. A research proposal can be anywhere from 500 to 3,500 words long, depending on your degree requirements. Your research proposal should aim to be relevant. You need to show your reader why your project is interesting, original, and important. It needs to take into account the context. You need to demonstrate your comfort and familiarity with your field. Show that you understand the current state of research on your topic. Also, you need to aim to consider the approach. Make a case for your methodology. Demonstrate that you have carefully thought about the necessary data, tools, and procedures. Also, feasibility. Confirm that your project is feasible within the timeline of your program or funding deadline. What should be included in your research proposal? Well, a title. Your title should give a clear indication of your proposed research approach or key question. You also need to include background and rationale. The background and issues of your proposed research, identify your discipline, a short literature review, and a summary of key debates and developments in the field. proposal should also include your research question. You should formulate this clearly, giving an explanation as to what the problem is and what is going to be explored and why it is worth exploring. You also need to include your research methodology, so the theoretical resources to be drawn on, the research approach, the research methods, and a discussion of the advantages as well as the limits of particular approaches and methods. You need to include a plan of your work and time schedule, so giving an outline of the various stages and corresponding timelines for developing and implementing your research, including the write-up of your thesis. For full-time study, usually your research should be completed within 3 years, with writing up completed in the 4th year of registration. For part-time study, your research should be completed within 6 years, with writing up completed by the 8th year. You also need to include a bibliography. You must include a list of references to key articles and texts discussed within your research proposal, and a selection of sources appropriate to the proposed research. Tips for this third skill. Avoid being too wordy. Avoid failing to cite relevant information and sources. Avoid focusing too much on minor issues. Avoid failing to make a strong argument for your research. And avoid not polishing your writing. Thank you for listening, and I'm wishing you all the best as you develop your research questions, your literature reviews, and your research proposals.